What's up guys, and welcome to the Blender Quick Tip. Today I'm going to be showing you how to render out images and animations with transparency, so including an alpha channel. So you can easily layer your renders over each other without having to worry about blend modes and stuff like that. And this tutorial is strictly for the Evee render engine, so just make sure you're using that. First things first, obviously you want to set up your scene. I'm just using this model as an example, setting up the camera just above. And if we render out that image, by default, it should be a grey background for Blender. So first thing you want to do, you just want to go over to your render properties here. Just make sure you're at Evee, and you want to go down to film. So expand this film menu, and you want to check transparent here. If we've done this right, now when we go into render mode, so if you hit Z and then 8, world should have this checkered background, which indicates that you have transparent mode activated. So when that's done, your world should render transparent. So if you have any HDRIs active, they should also render out transparent as far as I'm aware, unless you've done something to specify not to. That should be it. However, it's worth noting that if you're rendering out animations, not all codecs actually contain alpha channels. So for example, by default, we have it set to PNG. PNG is fine, but if you're going to render out an animation, say we'll change this to FFmpeg video. Let's say you wanted to encode it to a video with a transparent background. If you just do the default video settings, it's not going to work. And that's because, like I said, some codecs don't actually support alpha channels. So you'll notice when we changed it to FFmpeg video, all we have is RGB here. There's no RGBA option. And when you select PNG, you actually have an option for RGBA. The A stands for alpha, which is essentially what this checkered part is. So for example, if I change this to JPEG, JPEGs don't have an alpha channel either. When you save it down as a JPEG, you'll notice that you won't have a transparent background. So if you're just doing an image, that's fine. Just stick to PNG. But if you are wanting to encode it as well into a video, say you're doing an animation, you'll need to either render it out as an image sequence, as a PNG sequence with RGBA selected. Or alternatively, you can just select FFmpeg video, go to encoding here. You want to change the container to QuickTime. Make sure you have QuickTime installed. And if you haven't, I think you can just go on the Apple website, I think, and download it from there. I'm not too sure, I can't remember, but just Google it if you can't find QuickTime in Blender. I'm sure there's people who can guide you. I'm sure you'll be able to work it out how to get it. But yeah, so you want QuickTime as the container, which will be a .mov container. But you're noticing we're still not getting that RGBA option. And that's because H.264 is also a video codec that doesn't support alpha channels. So you want to change that to Qt animation, and you should now have that option for RGBA. And now if you render out the animation, it should preserve the alpha channel. So we'll just wait for that to render out. Great, so now that's done, let's take a look at the render. So if you just drag it into, it's worth noting if you're on Windows, you might not be able to play these QuickTime files with the Windows default video player. I think it's because QuickTime is an Apple proprietary codec, so I think that might be why you can't actually play it on Windows. But what you can do is, I recommend you just download this program. It's completely free. It's called Ali. You can download it for free from the Resolume website. It's called Ali. It's the A one, not the one. It's completely free. You just need to, I can't remember where exactly it is, but if you just navigate it, the website, you should be able to find Ali, this one with the A. It's just a really good video player. Pretty much plays any codec that you throw in it. And as you can see there, we've got our animation with our full transparency. So yeah, then you should be able to throw it into whatever compositing software that you use. See, when you load it in, you have a clear alpha channel, so you can do easy layering and whatever weird shit you want to do with this. So yeah, so that's pretty much it. But just one more bonus tip before I go. Let's say that you want to render out this text animation, which is pretty much just a image texture that's been slapped onto a plane. Obviously, the goal here is we want to render out this text with a transparent background. But the issue we have is that the plane isn't transparent. So we can follow those steps that I gave you earlier, which would be to obviously go to film in your render settings, check transparency. And the issue that you're going to have when you render it out is that it's not going to actually be transparent. And that's because we have a transparent background. But like I said before, the transparency only applies to the world around it. And the issue we have here is that the plane isn't transparent. So in order to get the desired effect here, we would actually need to add transparency to the shader itself. So in this case, all you need to do is just add a mix shader. So let's say you had a simple node setup with an image texture into the emission, into the material output. All you need to do is add a mix shader, pop that here, and you want to hit Shift A, add a transparent BSDF shader. You want to plug this into the second input of this mix shader. And we want to just blend the two in between. Now, if we blend it like this, we'll notice we're not getting any transparency. The reason is the Evee render engine has a few nuances to it when you're shading objects. You actually need to go to your material properties of this node group, scroll down over here to the settings, just expand this, and you want to change the blend modes. I tend to use alpha hashed. I think it's a bit better. They just use two different ways of blending the two. This one's a bit more noisy, but I think it's more consistent with the results. I prefer to use that. So now you can see if we fade these, we're getting transparency on the plane. But what you'll notice is it makes the whole thing transparent, which kind of defeats the purpose of what we're trying to do. If you render it out, you're obviously just going to get nothing. So what you can do is feed the image texture back in to the FAC, which is going to crunch the two together. And now you'll be able to see you've just got the text with a transparent background. So now if we follow the same steps, we will go to our output settings, change the file format to FFmpeg, change the container to QuickTime, and video codec to Qt animation, and then go back up, change that to RGBA. That's really important so that we can include the alpha channel. And now if we just copy this into the file path, we'll save that and we'll just render this out. And once that's done, we'll just locate the file. And again, we'll drag it into Ali, and you should be able to see here we have our transparency. I'm just going to quickly convert this to the DXV codec, which is the best one to use with Resolume. So I can show you the use case for this. So with that done, we'll just open up Resolume Arena, throw in your clips. You can easily layer the two over each other now. So, and obviously play around with your effects to your heart's content. And one final thing I wanted to note, if you're still not getting the transparent background when you render it out, just make sure that you're not using Blender's compositor. You just want to make sure that this use nodes thing is unselected. Sometimes something that you've done in the compositor may be preventing it from rendering out the alpha channel. So my advice would just be to render it out without any compositing. So just make sure use nodes is unchecked. You can always do the compositing after, once you've thrown the footage back in, and you can do all your effects magic later. That pretty much sums it up. So I hope you learned something new from this. If you did, leave a like and subscribe, and consider supporting me on Patreon if you find value in my content. You can find more of my work at nedmotion.co.uk.